All right, thank you, Paula. I want to welcome everyone, both here in person and those who are watching online. This is the city of Cottonwood Heights. This is our business meeting for Tuesday, August 17th, 2021. It's actually 10 after 7. Our apologies for being a few minutes late. A long work session meeting, and we'll be reconvening in a few minutes in that meeting. My name is Mayor Mike Peterson, and I'll be conducting this meeting. I'd like to begin with a pledge of allegiance, and we're asked our distinguished Fire Chief, Riley Pilgrim, will you lead us in a pledge? Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. We have a guest that would like to turn the microphone over to, and that's from our good friends at the Jordan River Commission, their Executive Director, Soren Simonson. Come on up. It's been many years since I've seen you, actually, when they did the plan here about 15 years ago. Let's make sure your microphone's on.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation to join you this evening. I've got a letter that I wanted to pass around. I'll just pass it up to Tim here. And I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Thank you, Paula, for your assistance with that. Well, I wanted to just give you a brief update, and for those that may be listening in, who the Jordan River Commission is and what we do. Recently, your city manager, Tim Tingey, sent us a notice that Cottonwood Heights was withdrawing from the Jordan River Commission. And of course, we're sad to see you go, but we want to express our gratitude for a decade of partnership with Cottonwood Heights City. We are an interlocal agency that is made up of partners all across the Jordan River watershed, federal, state, county, regional, and local governments that are all working together to improve the Jordan River Parkway. There's a few statistics up on the screen. I won't share these in detail, but just to give people a sense for what the Jordan River Parkway is and what we're involved with. It's a great wildlife habitat, very critical wildlife habitat, but also a really incredible recreation amenity for the region. There are currently 16 cities that participate in various regulatory aspects of the Jordan River, land use and zoning, parks, trails, open space, and those sorts of things. We have 3 counties, Utah, Salt Lake, and Davis County, that are part of that. There are a number of special districts, including water treatment, wastewater, stormwater, transportation and mobility, and of course, state and federal regulatory agencies that deal with water quality and wildlife and habitat and those sorts of things. The Jordan River Commission was established in 2010 as kind of the culmination of a vision which Cottonwood Heights participated in very actively in creating this commission. We're very grateful for your partnership over the last decade in helping to implement many of these goals that are up on the screen. And while you're not a city that touches the Jordan River, we've been very appreciative of ways that you've helped us to think about what the Jordan River means beyond the immediate vicinity of the Jordan River. Our current composition includes all 16 cities that touch the Jordan River. You have been for many years the only city that doesn't touch the Jordan River that's participated, and we're very grateful. We're of course very thankful, especially to your council member, Christine McKell, and others previously that have served on our governing board. I just wanted to mention a couple of things that are going on today that we hope you will continue to be partners with us in. The first of those is the establishment of the Jordan River Watershed. Back in 2020, the state legislature created the Watershed Council Act, which establishes a statewide watershed council and identifies different watersheds around the state, the lakes and rivers that you're familiar with, Great Salt Lake, Utah Lake, Bear Lake, and many of the rivers in the state, And we're excited for the possibility of creating a Jordan River Watershed Council. We're already doing a lot of the things that the Jordan River Watershed Council would do. This kind of expands our territory beyond the half mile of the Jordan River, which has kind of been our area of focus for the last decade, to really think about that 3,800 square mile watershed that feeds the Jordan River and everything downstream. We've been in active discussion with the Department of Natural Resources and their consulting team that are working to establish and develop this Watershed Council, and we're hopeful to be one of the very first watershed councils in the state. And that certainly will open up opportunities to continue to work with you, because with two of those major tributaries that flow through your community, you're an important part of our watershed. I wanted to highlight the Love Your Watershed initiative. We launched this last year during our Get to the River Festival. It's a very important initiative that helps get everybody in the broader region thinking about how they're connected. You don't have to touch the Jordan River to have a really important role in addressing water quality and things like are pictured here. I'm going to show you a series of slides that show what the lower Jordan River, which is the bottom of the watershed, sometimes looks like. We've got a really active core of volunteers that come out regularly and help clean litter and debris out of the river. But there obviously are many connections to the river through the creeks and through all of the stormwater system, including here in Cottonwood Heights, that play a really significant role in that. You can see some of these stormwater systems as they empty into the river. This initiative that we started last year is to get people out in their community, whether they're homeowners or business owners or land managers, and cleaning up storm system, whether it's the curb and gutter in front of your home or business, or parking lot around a school or a church or a park in your neighborhood. They all flow to the Jordan River, and we hope to see your community, as many communities, embrace this project. Mill Creek City, one of your neighbors to the north, has really embraced this program, and we're seeing more cities really developing programs around this Love Your Watershed initiative. Many institutions and even businesses have highlighted things in their storm drains around their businesses and parking lots, like these pictures on the screen, to help identify ways that people become more conscientious about that. The last thing I wanted to share, I think this is going on in your community. There's a National Day of Service on September 11th this year, the 20th anniversary commemoration of the 9/11 attacks in the US. And there's a day of service that's being organized, and we have highlighted this Love Your Watershed initiative as a really amazing way to get people involved in their community, not just for a day of service one time, but to think about how this service can extend in the future. If there's time, I'd love to share a video. If not, the link is on the screen. It's about a 4 or 5 minute video. So I'll take your direction if you'd like to see that now. Or
No, I think we understand the day of service. We have it going on in our city as well, and
Fantastic.
many sites, and we applaud that effort.
Great. Well, I just wanted to end. I just wanted to end with a couple of resources for your citizens to be aware of. We have some great online tools from our mobile app, which now also includes all of the canyon creeks from the Wasatch Mountain Range. This is the myjordanriver.org mobile site, and there's a My Canyon Creek mobile site that runs off of this same platform. So we'd love to introduce your community to this great tool and resource that connects the Jordan River and all of its tributaries on the east side of the valley. There are lots of other ways to connect with us through websites, through mobile apps, through community initiatives and things like that. And we'll leave this information with you. I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments.
Well, let me make
I just want to say thank you.
No, thank you. Let me make a couple comments and open up to the council as well. Firstly, Jordan River Parkway is very close to my heart. I was involved with some initial developments in the 70s. And so I follow its growth and improvements, because a lot of people thought we'd never see what we see today. And so part of that's because of Jordan River Commission and finally getting all the municipalities on the river to finally get involved. I know it's only been the last few years we've got the last cities involved. So even though we don't have the formal membership, please understand how supportive we are of what you're doing and what you stand for with that Jordan River Commission and its contributories that come through our city, which is Big Little Cottonwood Creek. So we're very supportive. And of course, the watershed is critical to all of us, because the watershed right here in these canyons serve Salt Lake City Public Utilities, and we're on that system as well. And so we're very sensitive to that, as well as we are with Central Wasatch Commission. So we applaud your efforts, and please stay in touch with us because we are still very supportive of your mission and what you're doing. And do you have at-large membership as well on your?
We do. Yeah, that position is currently represented by Denise Winslow, who's retired and has been a great contributor to our work at the Jordan River Commission for many years.
And I would also encourage you to make contact with our Parks, Trails, and Open Space Committee, who's also very sensitive to this issue, and keep them involved as we talk about our own systems, both trail systems along our waterways and stuff like that as well. We have our big Cottonwood Canyon Trail and down through the Crestwood Park and those waterways and things like that we're very sensitive to as well. So again, we applaud the efforts. We're still supportive of what you're trying to do. And any other comments from the council?
Thank you, Mayor.
None. Thank you very much, and appreciate you filled some big shoes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And again, thank you for your decade of partnership with us. And we'll look forward to continuing ways to work together.
Yep, stay in touch. We appreciate it. The next item on our agenda is item 4.0, which is our citizen comments. And I have citizen comments cards here. Just a reminder to those who are going to make comments, we encourage you to keep those comments to 3 minutes unless you are representing a group. And then you can go a minute or two longer. We ask you to please make your comments constructive, no personal attacks or things that are considered inappropriate by the majority, and appreciate that sensitivity.
Mayor, may I add something?
Yeah, we do have, go ahead.
When you're ready to open it up, there's a number of individuals that have submitted written comments.
Yep.
I just wanted to acknowledge
I was going to bring that
those.
up next, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. So these individuals, and I'll read their names, they provided written comments and they've been forwarded to the council. And so they'll be part of the record. These individuals include John Kennington, Alan Sheen, Mark Barrett, Dottie Gallagher, Beverly Bowden, Leslie Rinaldi, Clarice Evans, Lynn Krause, Eve King, Siobhan Davis, and Jack Bloom. So their written comments will be part of the record and they've been forwarded to the council.
We appreciate those individuals that put those in writing. So we thank those. Our first speaker will be Representative Galen Benyon. Galen, come on up.
Hey, I'm here on behalf of constituents here in House District 46. I've heard from a lot of parents who are concerned that we don't have a mask requirement for children in elementary schools. And then these citizens have mobilized just since August 3rd. They have gone to speak at, had rallies and spoken to the county council, and they've written a letter to the governor. They are very concerned and devoted. They're called concernedcoalition.org. They have a website now. And I want you to know that these are your citizens that started this group. They wrote to me and I asked if they wanted to connect. And once I did that, they've just taken charge. And we are really concerned and coming here today because since Monday, 113 children between the ages of 5 and 13 tested positive for COVID. In the past week, 713 children between the ages of 5 and 13 tested positive compared to 133 during the same period last year. So we've gone from 133 last year to 713 this year. We know that the Delta variant is as contagious as chickenpox. Just today, one of these citizens contacted me and let me know Mayor Mendenhall is considering offering a requirement for the elementary schools in that city in working with the school councils, the school board. So we are just here to ask Mayor Peterson to consider this. We have children that have health concerns that only universal masking will make it safe for them to return to school. And so their parents are forced to make a choice to get a nanny or to quit their job or to do something so that they can stay home with their child. Where if everyone wore masks, which is a minor inconvenience, and just hopefully for another month or 2 or 3 till we get the vaccination for these children. And so I just want you to know what great citizens you have. And I thank you for your service.
No, thank you, Galen. And I've received many of those communications myself, and we've heard about Mayor Mendenhall's consideration. We're waiting to see how that moves forward based upon what we saw in the county and being part of the county and being under the direction of the county health department. We're trying to better understand what authority we have, but personally, I have a lot of support for those concerns, having some grandkids in our local elementaries. So we're very sensitive to that and getting more information and watching very closely what those others municipalities are doing.
Good.
Yeah.
Mayor Mendenhall's attorneys studied and felt like she had the right to do this.
Yep, we're,
Mayor, may I,
please.
those, the 713 and the 133, are those state numbers?
Those are state numbers
Okay.
and they're
I just
reported
wanted, I
today.
wasn't sure the jurisdiction you were talking about, so I
This
want to make
is
sure.
in state numbers and it's reported in today's Tribune, Deseret News.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that reminder to us. It's a very sensitive issue and one that we want to continue to monitor and be prepared to adjust. Chris Campbell.
I'm Mr. Mayor and City Council. I am concerned with the lack of mask mandate for children. My father recently, he was vaccinated and recently caught the Delta variant, and he has been on oxygen ever since. He was in the hospital for over a month. This is one thing that I think we can see happening to older residents and citizens of Utah with what's happening. Without having the mask mandate in place, these kids can spread it to all their families. And with the vaccine not being 100% effective against the Delta variant, I could see the spread happening, and that's my concern. I just want to see that we're being as safe as possible. And with these, you know, I mean, I thought with being vaccinated, there was no chance that we would see issues with, you know, my father catching COVID. And he was one of the first people at the Altaview Hospital with COVID, even though he was vaccinated. So that's one thing I just would like the city council and you to consider is think about how this is spreading at this point. And that's all I have.
Thank you. We appreciate hearing that. And again, as we just mentioned, it's something we want to be sensitive to, both in our communication with the school board, which are also elected individuals, and seeing what the county health department's saying and seeing what Mayor Mendenhall does. So we're going to watch it real closely and be prepared to respond. But personally, very, very supportive of those issues. Unar Bowman, come on up again. Yeah, welcome back.
My name is Runer Bowman. I'm with from District 3. I was just listening on your 5 p.m. work session, I guess it's called, and I was doing a couple things at once, but I did pick up some information on your upcoming decision on the transit for ski buses and all. And the recommendation that was coming across I saw was the enhanced bus service. And I'd just like to let you, just my 2 cents, that I think that's a great idea. I'm an avid skier, season pass holder. I do ski Big Cottonwood Canyon, not Little Cottonwood Canyon, but I have similar issues with traffic and such. And you know, for me, what drives me to take a bus is if it's like almost seamless as opposed to driving. So in other words, if there's buses leaving every 5 minutes, let's say, I don't have to wait around for 15 minutes, I'm going to take the bus. So I do pick up the bus on Fort Union Boulevard, and I ride it up to, unfortunately, to the park and ride. And then the bus becomes a sardine can. And then we get on to, you know, the boulevard to turn on to Big Cottonwood Canyon. And we sit in traffic because there's that one turn lane and it's a nightmare. So as it stands now, you know, the bus service to Big Cottonwood Canyon is pretty much a nightmare because the buses don't go any faster than cars. So what's the point? You know, if you're going to get there the same with a car, in fact, you get faster with a car because I can get up there, you know, 6:30 in the morning, which you have to do now because so much traffic. But Little Cottonwood Canyon doesn't have that on-ramp or that left-hand turn constraint. And I can see the appeal of an enhanced bus service there. I think that's a great idea. And like I said, it makes it such that walking a few, 50 feet to a bus or whatever is pretty much almost like just driving your car. So I think that the flexibility that affords, as they mentioned, using the buses possibly for even Big Cottonwood Canyon and those parking areas for other uses, I think is great. And even a flex lane that would allow me to ride my road bike in the summertime and give me a little more distance from traffic is a big appeal. So I think that they're on the right track with that whole idea. The gondola idea, I think it's, to me, it has a big environmental impact. I ride my bike up Little Cottonwood Canyon in the summer months. It's a beautiful ride. At points along that ride, the creek is right by the road, the rushing water, and it's all forested. It's beautiful. The thought of seeing gondola towers being positioned all the way up that route. I don't know the location of those gondola towers, what they'd go in if they did do this, but I suppose it would have a big environmental impact and it would be a big mess. I don't see the gondola thing as being a really very viable alternative. So any event, just want to let you guys know that I think the enhanced bus service is a great idea. Thank you.
No, thank you. And we have till September 3rd to submit our full position on that EIS. And that's just one point, but several others. And that'll be made to the public as well as we get close to that date. And if you listened today, you heard many of those positions. So thank you.
Okay.
Jenny Nazaro. I recognize that name.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
So I'm Jenny Nazaro, and I came to you a few weeks ago to ask that you show your support for a school mask mandate. The legislature has made issuing a mandate difficult, but not impossible. And just as we mentioned, Mayor Mendenhall has announced her intent to issue a school mask mandate. So I encourage you to do the same for Cottonwood Heights. I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and both are ineligible to be vaccinated. I was terrified sending them to school this week. I was devastated that the county council overturned Dr. Dunn's mask mandate. For a moment, I thought I could relax and send my kids to school safely. I was disappointed, and I couldn't believe that they ignored the advice of the CDC, Academy of Pediatrics, the state and local health departments, and doctors in our area. Sadly, this has become a partisan issue for some. It is key that returning to school safely with minimal interruptions is universal mask wearing in schools, but this does not occur without a mandate. Recommendations alone don't work. I went to school this week and saw my kids' schools, and less than 50% of students and staff were masked. Last year, we learned that masks and with safety protocols in place, we could slow the spread of COVID-19 and keep schools open. With the Delta variant surging in our area and affecting children more than previous variants, I'm greatly concerned about the safety of my children. Just a few days ago, our local ABC Channel 4 news explained that Primary Children's Hospital is already at capacity with no available beds. It's also estimated with the Delta variant that each person will infect an additional 5 to 8 people. There's a misconception that COVID doesn't severely affect our children, but that's just not true. And our hospitals cannot accommodate the inevitable surge as schools open without a mask mandate in place. I know I have the right to send my kids to school with a mask, but this does not fully protect them if others are not masked. Masking in schools should not be a personal choice because someone's inaction can harm so many others. Just as there are laws to keep everyone safe, such as laws to prohibit smoking in schools, speed limits, drunk driving laws, and fire restrictions, there should be universal rules in place to keep our children from catching COVID-19. The pandemic doesn't end because we're sick of wearing masks. I know most of the community has had a chance to be vaccinated, but my children have not. Please don't discount them. Be the voice of reason for our children's safety at schools. Every day that action is delayed is another day that children are packed into classrooms and actively spreading COVID in our class. Don't wait until it is too late. Please do everything in your power to protect my kids and the rest of the community and issue a temporary school mask mandate in schools in Cottonwood Heights. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments again. And I have some questions, but I'll hold those till later. Karen Moser.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the council. My name is Dr. Karen Moser. I'm a practicing physician at the University of Utah in the Department of Pathology. My comments represent my personal views as a private citizen. I'm not speaking on behalf of the university. I'm adding my voice to those in the concerned coalition. I'm a resident of Cottonwood Heights and the mother of 2 Canyons Elementary School students under the age of 12. As school started this week, I want to urge you to continue to provide strong support in favor of masks in schools. Others in our state are leading the way with requiring masks for K-6 students. The Grand County School District, together with their health department and county government, will require masks when school begins in their district this Thursday. Salt Lake City Mayor Mendenhall, as was mentioned, is considering a similar agreement with the Salt Lake City School District. Why aren't Cottonwood Heights students worthy of the same protection? The science is clear. Universal masking works to protect our unvaccinated children. We've heard this message from the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and many trusted authorities in our own community, including the Salt Lake County Health Department and Dr. Andrew Pavia, head of the Infectious Diseases Division at Primary Children's Hospital. We can learn from the negative examples of other states too. We do not want to be like Arizona, where children started school on August 4th. The 7-day average of statewide COVID-19 cases in Arizona was 1,768 on August 1st and increased to 2,802 on August 16th. We definitely do not want to be like Mississippi, where the University of Mississippi Medical Center is constructing their second field hospital in their parking garage to treat all the patients in need of care for COVID-19 in their community. Please follow the example of Grand County, where a partnership between the school district, county government, and county health department led to increased protection for their unvaccinated children. Mandatory universal masking for K-6 students is an important tool to protect our children until they are eligible for SARS-CoV-2 vaccination. Please consider implementing a mask mandate for K-6 students in Cottonwood Heights schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate that. Barry Cron.
Hello, Council. Well, I guess safety is a theme of the day. An ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. I was just listening to the conversation you guys were having at the work session, so I wasn't even thinking of speaking today. but many things came up on that. UDOT has actually stated the point blank, straight to me, that they're employing a 50-mile-an-hour design speed. The issue with that is that's why it requires the space, 12-foot lanes on both lanes, the 14-foot median, and then a clear zone that is up to like 24 or 26 feet past the last lane. You cannot plant trees, put posts on that clear zone, because that's actually part of the code or the standard that is required for a 50-mile-an-hour requirement. So when you talk about traffic calming, you're truly talking about the design speed, and that's actually part of a booklet, the AASHTO booklet. That's a green booklet by the national the standards. And one of the things that always happens is an engineer, in this case UDOT, is deciding the speed and the volume of the road ahead of the safety and the cost of the corridor. And what we're asking as a community is to prioritize the safety, just like what we're talking about over here. And that's why we require 35. As of this year, as of today, right now, the state is actually experiencing more than 20% increase in fatalities on our roads. And that's compared to last year, which was already a tragic year. That's by design. We are designing roads that are way too fast, and then we try to fix them by putting, paint on the road and try to do all kinds of fixes. But if we design them correctly to begin with, we can actually save lives. Wasatch Boulevard has about 11 street crossings and access points, maybe more than that. Most of them are going to remain unsignalized, and now with a multiple lane configuration. And that's going to expose local residents to broadside collisions. Broadside collisions at 30 miles an hour have a fatality or severe injury rate of about 30 or 15%. At 40 miles an hour, the fatality or severe injury increases to 85%. This is statistics that everybody knows. And that's why we demand a slow design speed to that section of the road. Just to keep on going, because otherwise I'm going to run out. ADU requests legislature to actually next year to actually reimpose the fire separation, electrical panel access, and you know, return to the code. Our fire marshal can probably speak more about that. Ferguson Canyon, just one real quick idea about that retaining wall. This is supposed to be a local destination, which might increase walkability because of the corridor that, again, the plan for the, you know, the multi-use pathway. When you put a wall that is going to be several feet length, that is blank or, you know, boring, and is going to be reflecting the noise back, break it up visually. Change the visual so that it becomes more interesting for the people that are going to be walking, so that it becomes more accessible for that. So even though you may put texture, maybe leave some sections that are blank, and then grab the art students from the local high school or middle school and do a mural in there, or do something that is artistic so that it's actually entertaining and brings people to walk through. In any case, good job on most of those things, but I think that we need to actually prioritize safety on all kinds of areas. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. A lot of good points. And I think many of those discussed in our work session. And again, on September 3rd, we'll have a formal response to UDOT. And I think many of those things will be in there and provide some additional clarification for those who are not sure where we stand. Laura Williams and is it Heidi Atencio? I'm sure I butchered your names. I'm sorry.
No, it was good. We're here, we live in District 4, and we are here to talk about the Ball Diamond and the Dover Hill, Dover Hill Church property.
We love that subject.
We've been meeting with our neighbors with the intention of saving that land, and as you know, we have started a petition at change.org, and we've seen now that we have 1,667 signatures and over 60 comments from concerned citizens. We are here to speak on their behalf. We value green space. We think it's vitally important for our community. It's important for mental health. It's been proven that more access to parks gives citizens a higher quality of life. Another important consideration is that Utah and mountain communities in particular are growing like crazy, making open space more valuable than ever. Once it's developed, we'll never get it back. We saw surveyors at the property yesterday and heard they were working for Ivory Homes. We are disappointed that the church wasn't able to accept the city's offer to purchase the 3-acre park on the property. When looking at the Ivory Homes website, we see that they value the planet and quality neighborhoods. They also have an entire section on profit, which is what we feel is the main component here. We know how valuable this land is and hope some can be preserved as open space for the quality neighborhoods they claim to build. We also heard Ivory Homes would put a park in their plan, but with no parking available. If they do this, we would like to ensure access to all neighbors to that park. We wouldn't feel it appropriate for the park to be hard to get to for our existing community and be there only for the Ivory Homes citizens. We just want to reiterate how important this small plot of grass is to our neighbors and hope you'll make it a priority to save it for us in future generations. We're also grateful that you considered purchasing the property.
Thank you very much for your comments. And I have to comment that it's one of our highest priorities as a council, Councilor Michael and the rest of the council members, to do all we can to save that. Being a Parks and Rec practitioner, I have to say that if you take that green space away, there is nothing else in that community. So we're still in negotiation, we're still fighting, we're still working on some things, and we'll continue to do that. And so please stay in touch with us. We'll try and give you appropriate updates as we proceed, but we hear you, and please let those 1,500 signatures know of our position as a city, that that is a high priority. Yeah, it's gone. And yeah, we're sad they didn't accept our full offer, but the pressure that you as citizens have put on have got them to bend somewhat. So we're continuing to be in those negotiations. So thank you for coming tonight and for gathering all those signatures. Yeah.
Thanks.
Stephanie Hatler. Stephanie on Chris Lane, down District 4. Oh. District 1, I mean. I'll make sure to come back and get it. Ellen Burrell, come on up, Ellen. Good to see you again.
Good evening to all the council and staff tonight. My name is Ellen Burrell. I'm a resident of District 4 and founder and co-director of Save Not Pave, representing 1,000 residents committed to slower speeds in our neighborhoods and for the neighborhoods throughout Salt Lake County. High capacity and high volume roadways are fracturing residential communities throughout Salt Lake County. Cottonwood Heights has the unique opportunity to take a lead on influencing not only UDOT and the Little Cottonwood Canyon Environmental Impact Statement, but on collaborating with neighboring cities and county officials to work toward a viable long-term solution that emphasizes limited asphalt and transportation alternatives. We cannot turn the decades-old asphalting machinery, which supports unionized jobs and profits for many Utah companies, if we do not offer a viable alternative. This alternative is already brewing. Mayor Jenny Wilson and Councilman Jim Bradley, with support from several nonprofit local organizations, including Save Not Pave, are proposing a transit housing microhub system for Salt Lake Valley. This microhub system would address the need for both affordable mobility and affordable housing. The principle is to strategically identify hubs or nodes throughout Salt Lake Valley in which municipalities and developers are incentivized to put dense, affordable housing clustered within intermodal hubs. Services, shops, restaurants within these nodes makes for a walkable lifestyle and walkable access to transit that is set up to get riders to cultural, educational, business, shopping, and recreational venues and destinations easier and more conveniently. And thus, people can build that into their lifestyles. Our airshed and our safety and our health will be improved with such a system. Currently, according to UDOT reports, injuries and fatalities are on the rise because our legislature continues to support high-speed freeways, arterials, collectors, and streets. Your children and my grandchildren will need and want housing and mobility that is affordable, clean, safe, and builds a sense of community. We are currently not on that course here in Salt Lake County. So this will require political will. It will require passing legislation at some political cost, as new changes may upset some and please others. I hear talk of support for transit and active transportation here in Cottonwood Heights, but the spending in recent years for the city does not reflect that. Roadway improvements have been for motorists and monies dedicated to parks, trails, and open space. Our parks, trails, and open space are very important, but if residents must drive to put their bicycles on bike racks in order to access these things, then we are not achieving the stated goal in all of the Cottonwood Heights master plans, which is and describes a walkable community. So let's strive for that and do it now. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Ellen. Appreciate those comments and your involvement. Jan Meads. Welcome, Jan.
Hi, I'm a first timer.
Uh-oh.
I am also here representing the Dover Hill LDS Chapel and Green Space. I'm here representing my neighborhood, and I first off just want to say thank you because I know you're totally on board. I know you want to preserve that 3 acres or more. Myself, our neighborhood, the committee, the community, We care about the thoughtful preservation of the green space and also just the thoughtful development, if that does happen, of the rest of the space.
Good point.
I mean, we're very grateful. For many, many years, the LDS Church has had that space open to the public. I've only been a resident of Cottonwood Heights myself for 3.5 years now, but I do have 2 small kids, and we spend most of our winter days. I mean, we live right here at the foothills of the most beautiful mountains in the United States, but we also need walkable space for our children. And we use that space for sledding and riding bikes, like these other women said. It's good for our mental health. We need space, and if that space is not preserved, we have Golden Hills Park down the street, but it is a mile away and across Wasatch Boulevard. And when you have a 6-year-old on a bike, it's a little intimidating, even if there's a traffic light. I do have with me the printed petition. There are 1,500 names here, plus comments. And I did go back on the website today and look at it, and there's actually closer to 1,700 names that have signed that petition. We care. I know you care. I know there's negotiation to be had.
Is that a copy?
This is for you.
Oh, we want.
Yeah, this is a copy for you. Can I hand it over? So I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to have a voice. I know our community would be ever grateful if that was preserved. It's been really interesting in the last couple months that this has been going on. As a more recent member, I have gotten really close with some of those longtime members of the community and the time they have put into the development of not only the church, but the church property. They've taken care of it. Part of it was a gift, as you know, and we'd just like to see that gift fulfilled and have it continue to be a green space. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Jan. And as someone said earlier, one thing about open space, they're not making any more of it. So
I
when
know.
it's gone, it's gone. So we do need to do all we can. So we'll work on it diligently, and we'll try and stay connected to the community and let them know of our progress. So appreciate the efforts, because it takes the whole community sometimes get the word out and to make things happen. So we'll do our part. We promise you that.
Those 3 acres would mean the world to us. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Anyone else? That was my last comment card that I had. Anyone else that didn't call in? Oh, did Stephanie come back? Oh, is there someone online? Oh, yeah. Please let them in. I forget we're on Zoom. Holly, are you there?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead, Holly. Thank you
Awesome.
for your patience.
Oh, of course, thank you. So good evening. My name is Dr. Holly Uphold, and I'm a chronic disease epidemiologist. I live in District 4 of Cottonwood Heights, and I was one of the citizens that actually contacted Galen and helped start the Concerned Citizen Coalition. I have 3 kids, and my oldest is starting 1st grade, and I am in support of requiring masks in elementary school children until a vaccine becomes available to them. We know that masks work even when kids don't wear them perfectly. There was a study done in Salt Lake County elementary schools that found for every 1,000 kids that were exposed, only 7 became sick. Intermountain also said that they had essentially no pediatric hospitalizations related to flu or RSV last year when kids were wearing masks in school. So we know they work, and my kids have no problem wearing them. They wear them at the park playing in 100-degree weather. We also have to consider how COVID is spreading in schools and how this will impact parents in the Cottonwood Heights economy. Kids who get sick with COVID-19 have to stay home for at least 10 days and possibly more if symptoms persist past 10 days. We also have to think about when schools reach that 2% case threshold and have to go online. Will parents be able to take time off for their sick kids, or every time their child's school reaches that 2% threshold and has to close or go online? We also know that elementary age kids can't stay home alone. And speaking of sick kids, we know that long haul symptoms are a severe outcome that need to be considered, not just hospitalization and death rates. If we think about the long haul symptoms, we can see how they would affect learning ability and school success of those who get sick with COVID-19 and get these symptoms. Several studies have reported long haul symptoms do impact about 4 to 10% of children for at least a month. Symptoms include fatigue, headache, difficulty concentrating, and insomnia. And it's not hard to see how these symptoms would affect school performance. And in several of these studies, they found that kids with mild And even those who are asymptomatic were not spared from some of these effects. So considering all these factors, it seems like common sense to have all elementary age kids wearing masks until they can be vaccinated, which we have heard is coming hopefully the end of September, beginning of October. And so I just ask, why wait until there's been unnecessary and preventable suffering among one of our most precious populations before we take common sense steps to protect them? I hope you will follow in Mendenhall's footsteps and issue a face mask mandate for elementary age children in Cottonwood Heights. Thank you all.
Thank you, Holly, and for calling in and taking the time out of your busy schedule. Again, it's an important issue to us, and conceptually we're supportive. We just need to understand our legal rights and move forward and look at all of our options. So thank you. Anyone else online that would like to raise their hand? And Christine, I can see you pull your microphone over. Do you have a comment?
I do, Mayor. Thank you.
Please, yeah.
I know, I think all of the folks here speaking today about a mask mandate, I maybe erroneously told a constituent today that I didn't think that we as a city had the authority, but I'd just like to know if that's something we could look at. Making that request, if Aaron Mendenhall did as a city.
No, I think that's our next step, is hearing that news today. First of all, my understanding is that we're under the direction of the Salt Lake County Health Department, and typically we look for their direction because they have that authority. So I have two questions. One is if municipalities do have the authority. Two, if school district elected board members, do they have the authority? And three, if the county mayor has the executive authority, even though it's overridden by the county council. So I think there's several questions there we need to better understand, but individually, and we've not talked as a council, myself, having a grandchild that goes to school up the street, and I'm concerned, and I know she's more than willing to wear a mask. So conceptually, we got to look at a couple of things. We need to look at our authority, look at the county has that authority. We've looked to them in the past, so we've got to do a little bit of homework, but we can ask staff to help us do that over the next couple of days and get some further information.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess my question, the one that I just had, and I have no idea if this is up to attorneys and lawyers to figure out, was I did find it interesting that the legislative body of the county had the authority to override the health department's concern. I don't know if our position as a legislative body would give us a similar type of position or not. That's something that we would, anyway, when we have staff or whoever look into that.
Yeah, I understand Mayor Mendenhall was looking at more of an emergency declaration. So that's
and whatever reasoning she's using, if that works, then we should certainly do that.
Just having that information, I think, is we need to find out right away, because this has come to our awareness today, and so we want to look at it and be aware. And again, I'm trying to understand why the school district elected officials, which is their duty, why they're not looking at it and what authority do they have. And
I thought that they were specifically
from the legislature, but do we have the right to override them? And then how the Salt Lake County Health Director can be overridden really surprises me. So yeah, some questions we need to have a little better understanding, but again, conceptually, I personally am supportive of that direction in some fashion, even if it's a temporary basis till we get the numbers down to where we all can feel safe. And someone as old as I am has to be extra careful. So
I appreciate that, Mayor. I think that I thought what we did with the firework ban was showing leadership. And I think there's evidence of why we needed to do that recently.
Yeah.
And I think this merits the same type of leadership, whether it's legal or not. But that's my
no, I
opinion.
appreciate that. That's exactly my same thought. And the reason that works so well is we had numerous municipalities right in line with us to do it together. That's why when Mayor Mendenhall, who's the largest city, steps forward, it gives us impetus to see how that falls in line and see if Holiday, Mill Creek, Sandy, others are in that area as well. Yeah. So I guess what we're asking is for staff to take a quick look at that with Shane to tell us their interpretation, and then we can talk further. But appreciate the support in that direction, and we'll definitely look at what our options are.
Mayor, could I just add to that?
Please.
We are sworn to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our constituents, even and especially those under the age of 12. So I think we could all make ourselves available for an emergency meeting if staff should find out that we are in a position to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate those comments, both from the council and the public. Oh, we have one more raised hand. Who is it? Jennifer, welcome. Jennifer is the chair of our Parks, Trails, and Open Space Committee, but that may not be the subject, but go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson. I am here today as a citizen of Cottonwood Heights and not as the chair of the Parks, Trail, and Open Space Committee. I'm also a biologist and the mother of an 8-year-old and the wife of an ER physician who's currently in Mississippi treating COVID patients for 2 weeks as part of a disaster medical assistance team. So I'm already living the future that we might see in Utah if we don't do something like institute a mask mandate in our city. I just want to make 2 additional points that have not been made by other folks who have talked about this mask mandate. And number 1 is there have been at least 297 children around the country have died of COVID-19. For comparison, flu takes the lives of between 40 to 200 children per year. But when H1N1 was at its peak, it had similar virulence to COVID-19. And these numbers are pre-Delta variant. We know that last year, when masking was mandated in schools, which is the only way that children are the most protected, that both transmission of flu and COVID were very, very low. And so even anecdotally, we know in our own city that our schools were able to stay open and our children were protected. And now that we have a more virulent strain of COVID in our community, I feel that that's the only way that we can keep our kids protected until they're eligible for vaccines. So I strongly encourage and thank you for considering this mask mandate.
No, thank you, Jennifer, for taking the time and calling and appreciate the service of your husband and yourself. But again, important issue, don't want to make light of it. We'll ask staff to immediately give us some feedback. And as Councilmember Bruce said, if we have to have emergency meeting to discuss it, we're more than willing to do that. And we'll sure move forward as information presents itself as soon as possible. So thank you. Any other comments or raised hands online? All right, that ends our citizen comment period. We now are taking public comment on 2 amendments to one amendment to section 1929-30 concerning home occupations in our R16 zone. So Mike, you want to introduce that just quickly, and then we'll take any public comment. And I hope you know you're all required to stay for the full meeting, but that's all right. Just kidding.
Okay, so this is a city-initiated zoning text amendment, a very minor amendment to the R16 zoning code. R16 is the zone, it's single-family residential with a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet. There's actually only one small area of the city, about 3,000 east, a little farther east than that, and south of Fort Union Boulevard, that is in that zoning. So it covers a very small portion of the city. The action requested by staff is that the council add 1 allowed use into that zone, which is home occupations as a conditional use. I'll give a little bit more basis in a second, but the Planning Commission took public hearing on this at its last meeting, unanimously recommended approval. Staff also recommends approval. This is kind of hard to see, I apologize, but this is a chart showing all of the residential zones in the city. You can see the green is every zone that home occupations are allowed in. So from our largest 1 acre per property residential zone down to residential multifamily, so high density residential, home occupations are an allowed use in our code for whatever reason. And I don't know that it was intentional. They are not currently listed as an allowed use in R16. They're not listed as prohibited. They're just not included in there. Staff suspects that because we have so few properties in this zone, this was just never caught over the years, but we did go and check. We have numerous home occupations, home businesses in R16 properties that have been issued throughout the city's history. Even dating back 10 years ago or so, the Planning Commission approved a home daycare in this zone that was upheld. This was never questioned. So there is also a lot of precedent for allowing home occupations in this zone as we do all other residential zones. That's really all we have. We find no adverse impacts to this, given that it's an allowed use everywhere else. Having a home office has very little impact. And those that do have impact go through the public hearing process to make sure those impacts are mitigated. So again, we're recommending approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
That's with the conditional use.
Well, so a home office is minor. If you're just answering emails and things like that, that's permitted. If you have clients coming to your home for any reason, that requires a conditional use permit.
All right, thank you, Mike. Any comments or questions from the council? Hearing none, we'll open up for public comment. Anyone in the audience would like to make public comment on this amendment concerning home occupations in R16 zone? A little bit of a house cleaning item. So hearing none, we'll close public comment on section 5.1 on the agenda and move to 5.2, city initiated request to amend the zoning and land use designation for the 6.27 acres at 7725 South Wasatch Boulevard and that in 7828 South Prospector Drive regarding the Ferguson Canyon overflow parking and small public park.
Yeah, thank you. Another procedural matter of business requested by city staff. It's well known we're moving forward with construction of a park and a parking lot on this property that is just off of Wasatch Boulevard and Prospector Drive. We've been under agreement with the county since 2009 to do this and are now moving forward. We've had open houses for the design, but this does not involve the design of the park or any input with that. This is just the land use and zoning designation. Right now, interestingly, it's the land use designation and zoning indicates high density multifamily housing. Obviously, we're proposing a public use, a public park and parking lot and trailhead amenities. So we are proposing to amend the high density residential and then the small piece of single family residential to public facility, which will allow more appropriately for a public use such as a park. So a public facility zone and a civic land use underneath that. This also went to Planning Commission and received a unanimous vote of recommending approval to the City Council.
Any questions of Mike on that issue? Hearing none, we will move to public comment on this city initiated request to amend the zoning. Anyone in the audience would like to speak to this question of amending the zoning and land use designation for this 6.27 acres? Come on up. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nikki Harris. I guess it just sparked a interest with the UDOT's plan. Is that going to remain a park, or is UDOT going to take a section of that after we approve it? That was my question.
Just real quickly, that this will be outside the right of way of UDOT through that area. So that's already taken into consideration. And so once this is developed, it would not be impacted.
Okay. And then I guess with the public park right along Wasatch, we would need to probably lower speeds, right? Or put in some type of protection.
We hope
Would
so.
that be a concern?
The Wasatch Boulevard Master Plan will include an emphasis from our city to work towards lower speed. It's UDOT road, and that is a priority of ours, yes.
Okay, those are my concerns,
No.
because I know UDOT has some plans.
Very, very good points and well taken. Appreciate you coming and sharing those. Absolutely. Any other comment. Don't mean to get into a dialogue. I've done too much of that tonight. We don't normally do that, but I'm talkative. All right, hearing none, we'll close public comment on item 5.2, which is the amended zoning request, and we'll move to staff quarterly reports. Item 6.1 is our monthly financial report by our Finance Administrative Services Director, Scott. Come on up. Hopefully you got some good news and some enough money to do all that we want to do.
Yes, excuse me, generally I do have good news. So okay, so this is kind of a new slide that I put together just for the end of year. Our budget, as we adopted it right here, showed our beginning fund balance, and that's going to remain true because we know what that is from our audit, was just under $5.5 million as we started the year, and that's all forms of fund balance, not just expendable fund balance. We had revenues budgeted of $21,381,000, and that included a reduction in our sales tax revenue of about $1 million down to $5.75 million, and then expenses of $18.3 million, transfers out of almost $7 million, so showing a use of fund balance of $631,000 here. That would leave us with $4.8 million at the end of the year.
So what's the transfer out again?
The transfer out is a combination of things. It goes to our capital fund to fund capital projects.
It's just moved to other funds.
Yeah, it goes to our debt service fund. And
that's what I thought, is making sure.
So year to date, our numbers and we're not totally done. We haven't received everything yet, but year to date, again, we start at the same number. Our revenues are 22 million, almost $22.5 million. Our expenses are $17.3 million, and our transfers out are exactly where we are. So year to date, we're showing a build of fund balance of almost $1.5 million. However, projection is a little bit different. Going to projection, we're projecting to have somewhere in the neighborhood of $23.2 million, and that's a change here. I'll go over the change and the assumptions that are in the change momentarily. Expenses of about $17,350,000. Oops, I think I have. No, never mind. And then transfers out is exactly the same. So
the 7 million includes the reserve that we're required to have.
Yes.
Yeah.
This amount here.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that would put us at about 33% fund balance. We're allowed to have up to 35% on that. And that includes all forms of fund balance. So one of the reasons why we're projecting more revenue is we have not yet received our revenue for June for sales tax. We're anticipating that would be about $650,000 roughly, based on the past 6 months or so that we've seen. Also, the county option highway sales tax for June has not been collected. That's about $55,000 a month that we're expecting there. And then the cable TV franchise tax, not just for June, but for the last quarter of the year, we're expecting about $80,000. And then I know there's about $15,000 to $20,000 of expenditures that I'm specifically aware of, and I just rounded that up to and even $17,350. There's going to be a handful of invoices that'll go through in the next week or so, and then we'll pretty much be wrapped up on that. So, some of the revenue drivers, why we're almost $2 million better in our revenue, is that we budgeted our revenue to be, as I said before, $5,750,000. The reality is we're going to be pretty close to $7,700,000 in our revenue for sales tax.
We never made a budget adjustment up.
We never did make a budget. We just noted that we expected that.
Well, for the audience, that's because when we had COVID coming, we assumed we'd have a lot less, and that didn't come to fruition. So.
We did, and I'll go into a slide that will kind of show some of those trends and what we did specifically on sales tax shortly here. And then on the expense drivers, we're almost $1 million lower on expenditures than our budget. And I'll just kind of quickly go into that at a high level. I won't go into a lot of details. In the general government, which includes administration, you know, and those kinds of items, finance, HR, the city manager, those kinds of things, we're looking at being about 300,000 under budget, or about 7.8% of expenditures. Public safety, we're about $350,000 less than budget, or about 3.4% of expenditures. And that includes fire, police, and animal.
I would expect, I mean, UFA contract's pretty stable.
It's pretty stable. We do have a little bit budgeted there in case they have some capital needs that.
A little bit of both fire and police.
Yeah. So, and then public works, we're about 250,000 less than budget, or 8.7%. And then community. And
That's all
economic
salt, right?
development. Yeah, much of that is salt. Yeah. And then community and economic development is about 100,000 less than budget, or about 9%. Overall, the expenditures that were down, oops, I dropped my pen. We're about 5.5% down on expenditures overall in the general fund from our budget. Going into some of the more specifics, sales taxes. So as we sit today, before we collect June sales tax, year to date, we're about 995,000 ahead of what we were last year. Last year, we collected $6,719,000 of revenues. So based on that, and our average month is running around 650,000, we're anticipating, and our collections to date are $7,051,000 there. We're anticipating we'll be pretty close to $7.7 million in net collections there. Again, this amount here, this $5,750,000 is artificially low, because we thought that the impacts of COVID would be much higher when we set this budget, which was back in June of 2020. We knew shortly thereafter that that was not going to be reality, and we've talked that pretty much exclusively going forward. The county option highway transportation sales tax, last year we received $586,000. This year to date, we're at $621,000. Again, this is going to follow the trend of sales tax. In this particular one, we received, can't remember the amount we receive each month, but it's about $55,000. But we anticipate we'll probably end this one about $675,000. So the net gain over the prior year will be, you know, in the $90,000 range. Compared to our budget, we'll be up on that, you know, in the $75,000 range. The energy taxes, which is predominantly, well, really exclusively power and natural gas, the taxes applied to those. These revenues tend to decline, and as people get more efficient with their appliances and other things, lighting and so on and so forth, these revenue, the net sales of those energies decline, and therefore our sales as a percentage of those declines as well. So this year we're 100% collected. We're $2,019,000, which is actually higher than the prior 2 years of collections. We don't know exactly why that is. It could be because maybe more people were in their homes as schools and things were shut down, and therefore we're heating and cooling their homes more often, and or lights turned on in homes as they were doing things, computers and other things. But we're not really sure why that is, but it is up just a little bit from the last couple of years. Our budget was $1,950,000. And so you can see that we're about $69,000 ahead of our budget as we close that particular revenue out. I mentioned before that our cable TV franchise tax is actually slightly behind last year. Last year we collected $323,000. We are about $7,000 behind last year. I would project this to land right about $315,000, which would be about $5,000 better than our budget of $310,000, but slightly lower than our prior year collection. And again, this one has been slightly declining each year. It's just a slight decline. Class C roads. Our Class C roads it's fluctuated a little bit. 2018 and 2020 were very, very close to each other. 2019 dipped a little bit. We have collected 1,248,000, so we're a little bit down. Some of that could be during the early part of 2021 when we weren't traveling quite as much, when we were on lockdown a little bit more. That could have been an impact on that. But we are above what our budget was. The budget was set at $1,210,000, and we came in at $1,248,000. So we're about $38,000 ahead of where our budget was there. Our general fund expense trend. So this is our budget, $18,280,000. You can see our expense budget does go up each year based predominantly on personnel costs. Personnel costs go up each and every year. There are other costs that do go up that are associated in this, such as we inherited 2 additional parks. One has been officially transferred over. I think we're still waiting for the other one to come, yet we've funded both of those. So our expenditures to date are $17,320,000. This is about $381,000 ahead of our 2020 spending. That $381,000 is going to be very close to our compensation impacts during that period that were adopted. So looking at that, that's about where we thought that would be. What did surprise me a little bit on this one is that our underexpend is 5.5%. I usually figure that's going to be in the 3 to 5% range, so we're slightly higher on that. And I would credit that to our directors that are trying to be as economical as they can, such as road salt was mentioned earlier. We did not spend as much money on road salt this year, and so we see that savings flow through the budget.
Not gonna thank Matt for the drought.
And then the last item, I added a general fund revenue trend. And so I don't know, sometimes there are different revenues in here that are not always consistent year over year, such as we have, I think it's $1.3 million of CARES funding that's in this particular year of 2021 that is not recurring, that was not in 2020. And so sometimes looking at it as a whole isn't always helpful, but at least you can see what the trend is going up. And then you can see where we did our property tax increase here. You know, as we saw that. Actually, I think that was showed actually in this 2018 year. The collections for that year, I think, that's actually where that occurred. And then we received some CARES funding that was impacted this year and some that impacted 2021. Moving forward, our budget is $21,381,000. We're about $22,457,000. And this does not include the sales taxes and the cable TV franchise tax last quarter payment that I outlined before. So that's going to be about $780,000 additional that will come in on that. And so hopefully sometime next month, we'll get you out a preliminary fund balance estimate of where we are. But my rough estimate at this point in time would put us at a build of a little bit better than $2 million in our fund balance in the current year. So we would land somewhere in the $7,600,000 range in terms of overall fund balance. What's coming in?
The unrestricted fund balance would then be 4.8 or so?
You know,
no, we can give me later.
Yeah, it's percentages. So it's about 1.3 million that we have to reserve for our 6%, and then there's about 500 and some thousand that is for compensated absences. So I think you're going to be, you know, 5.5 area.
6.
Yeah, maybe even 6. So quite a bit of fund balance. So are there any questions of any of the items?
Obviously, that's an excellent position based upon where we thought we would be this year. Looked at COVID and previous years. Outstanding. And my compliments to the various departments who have been efficient and saving money and returning that back, that it can be reallocated.
Yeah.
Any comments, questions from the council?
No, I would just, I'm going to ask about the public safety. We talked earlier in our work session that there were some possible needs at the UFA because they didn't spend some of the capital like they may have But also, kudos to the police department for, all of them. It's good to see them underspend when they can.
Yep.
I think it's responsible.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that report. Very good.
Well, you're welcome. It was off, Scott.
Is that what I was calling?
Call him Scott.
Oh, well.
I was just false response.
All right. All right. Chief Riley Pilgrim, UFA report. Or scaring people away. Must be because Riley's coming up.
Oh, this is not a good time to go outside. It doesn't look like, but good luck.
All right, well, Mayor and Council, thanks for having me up tonight. I always look forward to this, really, I do. So it's always fun to talk about what we're doing, how things are going, and get any questions that you may have about us and where we're at right now. So what this will be is our quota report from April to June. So that 3-month period of just how we were performing and what was going on, and everything looks pretty standard as far as what we experienced here in Cottonwood Heights. 582 incidents. Now I highlighted these two because they're inaccurate, and we're finding this across the board. When we use our Intero software that pulls our statistics, we found all of our municipalities that have this statistic right here, emergent calls, which is lights and sirens, is significantly off. And what happened in that time frame this last quarter was VEX switched over to a new call processing software, which prioritizes the calls when they come in. So basically takes the dispatchers down a different path of Q&A of the caller. And what we found is when they switched over to this software, the way the calls get coded in the background isn't tallying up as an emergent call. And so now we do what's called priority dispatching. So the dispatchers really ask just a few really basic questions. And right out of the gate, they dispatch the units, both law enforcement and fire, on a priority 1 or priority 2 call, which is lights and sirens, so emergent or non-emergent. And what we found is when those are getting inputted, they're not coming across the right way. Typically what you'll see is an 80% or so emergent call tally, which would put this up to about 500 or 400 and about 90 calls, which we would classify as emergent or lights and sirens. And a lot of times too, those are left up to not only the dispatch details, but our captain or the officer who's in charge will decide if that call meets the standard of being an emergent lights and siren call or not. We like to leave the discretion up to them as well, because one of the most dangerous things we do is drive to and from the call, and that subjects the public to more hazard and us. And so we like our captains to have that discretion. So hopefully next month or within the next few weeks, we'll have this fixed. We've been working with Intero, but have not quite put our finger on why this isn't accurate. But call volume, I think we're right where we typically would be. So you will see in this with the 4-year comparison, we do have a little spike, but again, it's nothing I'm too abnormal. It doesn't really strike me as odd. I mean, we're busier. People are getting back to kind of normalcy, and they're out and about and they're doing a lot more things. And so what we found across the board is that seems to be the case, as we're just picking up more calls. And we had that decline during 2020 when we thought we'd see this huge spike in calls. We actually saw it drop. So I think this is just a sign that things are kind of going back to normal for a lot of people. For us, the call types, remember, these are dispatched as, not arrived as. And so, but the top fire calls that we went on, 9 structure fires, I believe we ended up having just 2 that ended up being legitimate working structure fires. Other fires, which could be classified as many different things, 1 outside fire and then 1 vehicle fire, which would be tallied up in the structure fires as well. One thing I want to highlight, even though it's in this current quarter, is the fireworks statistics. I know we visited about on that right after, but kind of interesting is on the 3rd and 4th. I had the privilege to work in dispatch both those nights, which was eye-opening for me. But what was interesting is just in Unified Fire Authority's area, we actually ended up having almost 300 calls or complaints of fireworks in restricted areas. So 300 calls. Cottonwood Heights had 14, which is pretty interesting. So a very small number actually in the scheme of things. We worked very closely with law enforcement, and we had 15 extra people on duty that night, both the 3rd and 4th, just to go make citizen contacts. And we actually almost made face-to-face contact with all calls, 285 around the valley. The 14 in Cottonwood Heights had a person show up to every single one of those. We had 33 fire calls across the valley. 14 were actually tied to fireworks. 2 of those were in or near Cottonwood Heights. So one was right off 215 and Union Park. One was on the golf course more towards Holiday. Both of those were, one was definitely true to fireworks, the golf course fire, the one on the freeway, not yet sure that came from. But that was, that night is about 2 o'clock in the morning. And that area has actually experienced several other fires since then, which we think we've attributed to some transients and some other things going on in that area that we're working with code enforcement and again, law enforcement to make sure that area is getting taken care of. On the 24th, a huge decrease in calls. We actually only had 45 complaints on the 24th, so a significant decrease. 18 firework related calls, the rest were citizen contacts that we made on our own. And then 15 fires, one was attributed fireworks. I think it was a little busier too on the 24th here, not as bad, but you know, the restrictions as was shared earlier, you know, the willingness you all had to do that made a huge difference. I feel like my previous nights working the 4th of July, we've been triple the calls, and that's fires, not just complaints. So we, on a common night like that, we go on 100 or more fire calls, and we dropped it down to 33. So definitely the restrictions played a huge part in that. So, so we appreciate that happening. Top EMS dispatches over this quarter. So again, not too out of the ordinary, a lot of fall patients, sick people, 30 traffic accidents, breathing problems, and unconscious. So again, top dispatches, typically when the crew shows up, they may find something different. But these are typically how our EMS calls are being dispatched.
Any of these COVID related?
I can go back and get that. We track. So dispatch, every time they call, that's one of the first questions they ask is if somebody's tested positive, number one. Then after they screen them for COVID-like symptoms, they'll flag it as a potential. And so we actually have kept track of that throughout the whole valley. I don't have that here, but I can find out for sure. So we actually haven't been transporting a whole lot of people with COVID symptoms. Most of them are self-transported to the hospital. Very rarely do we go on someone who's actually sick from COVID. It's typically something else, and COVID's exacerbating that or vice versa. So, but yeah, we were surprised. We expected this huge increase, and we didn't see it, and we still haven't. So. Other dispatches, again, we get a lot of calls for public service or public assistance. So anytime there's, you know, if someone's locked out of their car or smoke detector, battery, something where they just need help, we'll show up and do those. Then we have unintentional system malfunctions and things where we just get false alarms, a couple spills, and then a few electrical or equipment problems that, again, are dispatched as when they ask those questions. When we show up, some of these might also be tied in with the fire calls and other things that we're dealing with. One thing I look at closely is this one, the importing and exporting. This was right now just within Cottonwood Heights what was coming in. And, you know, a good thing that we're looking at here is the majority of the calls. So about almost 90% of the calls are being covered by 116 and 110. You've got, you know, about 10%, so 60 or so calls that were covered by Midvale, which makes sense too. 126 just being right there on 7th East covers a lot of that Fort Union, Union Park corridor, which is typically pretty busy for all of us. Then ambulance responses, again, 110 is covering the majority of the calls. And then we have 2 ambulances stationed at 126. And so that's why you see a big number there. We have a part-time and a full-time ambulance there, and they're the second in usually for Cottonwood Heights, since 116 doesn't have an ambulance. So you'll see a majority of our transports or ambulances will come from 110 or 126. Emergent time, we watch this one pretty close too. So remember 50th percentile. So 50% or more of the time we're there at 544. And then that lumps into the 90th, 851. And a lot of those will be, again, non-emergent calls where the crew's chosen to go, not licensed sirens to get there. That, well, you'll see our time typically go up. Where this is emergent, you know, sometimes that also deals with just getting from point A to point B, and it takes some time. But we're right where we want to be with our 50th percentile. We like seeing that number below 6 minutes. Is typically something that we're aiming for. The 90th is sometimes just, you know, it could be hit or miss, but 9 minutes too is a kind of a good benchmark there. So we're doing really well in Cottonwood Heights. And again, this just emphasizes where a lot of our calls are happening, and kind of like I shared, where we expect it to be most busy is kind of that western edge of Cottonwood Heights. We do see the majority of our calls coming in that area, where 110 and 126 are definitely working together. You'll see this map really demonstrates that well too. The heat map, it shows all our call density right there. Care centers, commercial area, apartment complexes, you know, higher density or higher activity areas, we're going to see those kind of calls. So some exciting things that have happened too. We just finished a recruit camp, and so 3 of the new firefighters will rotate through Station 110 over their probationary period. Matt was in this last camp, pretty awesome. He's, you know, just turned 40. This is his first year in fire. He was a pilot, and he came from, I believe, an accounting position, wanted to start something new. And so we typically pick 110 because they're busy and it's a ladder truck, and firefighters get some pretty unique exposure to different calls and different types of things that we do on ladders that we don't do on engines. So being where 110's at, it's a great place to put new firefighters to get experience. Andrew, he was in the military for a long time. He was actually selected to be in our last camp and got deployed right before camp started. So we postponed that for a year, and he was first in on this camp. He was number 1 on our previous list, kept that spot. So we held on to that, made sure he had an opportunity to come into camp. And then I haven't met Jared yet, but a lot of good things, you know, with our training cadre who trained these individuals, spoke very highly of each one of these individuals. Going to make some time to make sure I meet Matt, but again, or Jared, but all these, again, firefighters are assigned here at 110. We'll see a rotation quarterly as well. So probably at the end of this quarter, we'll get a new batch of 3 firefighters in there as well. So other than that, that's kind of the basics for the quarter. I don't know if you have any other questions or anything.
Maybe you can share with the council about the new patch that all of our firefighters will be wearing probably later this fall.
Yeah, so pretty exciting. We're actually going to be removing one of the patches, I believe it's the left shoulder. It's going to be a Velcro patch. And basically, if you are working in one of our municipalities, one of our cities, you'll have a patch that reflects that. So firefighters in Cottonwood Heights will have a Cottonwood Heights patch. Looks very similar to this one, but it'll just say Cottonwood Heights across the top of the city emblem right there, which is, you know, pretty awesome. It came up in our strategic planning process. Several people have been helping us try to find ways that we can have more of that community like feel. You know, being Unified Fire Authority is challenging sometimes to really make that connection. And so one of the ways we've done that's logoing, right, with our stations, our apparatus, and now we found a way to do that with our patches on our shirts, which we think will be pretty neat. It'll be kind of a challenge, you know, because it's a Velcro patch, and if we have constant man or, you know, constant staffing shifts or rovers, you know, we're gonna have to collect patches every time they come and go. But you know, I think it's gonna be a really neat way to reflect where we're working, and I know a lot of people are looking forward to it. That, you know, it'll be kind of challenging. We have the patch collection, I'm sure, the people that are hoarding these somewhere, but yeah, it's gonna be pretty neat to be able to do that, show up in our communities, go on calls, go to community events, and actually, you know, have another way to show that we're part of Cottonwood Heights.
We have it in our vehicles already, so that's.
Yeah. So it's an awesome way for our firefighters now to do that as well. So we're looking forward to that. It's in the kind of the prototype phase now. We've put Velcro on the shirt, we're washing it. We've got some patches made, we make sure it holds up, and so far it's looking pretty good. So we're hoping by the fall time we have those rolled out and you'll start seeing those. So
Find a firefighter we really like.
some of them may already be doing that. Yeah, they really like this job, so a lot of them
All
personally
right,
wear that.
I think we're going to announce to the council as well, because it is public to a degree, but not official, but it's public, is that Chief Peterson will probably be retiring next April.
Yeah, he's made it pretty clear April 1st is a pretty realistic.
So
deadline.
that recruitment process will begin months before. So just,
Yeah.
I think the council would be aware of that, and because we appreciate his professionalism and his efforts over the last 5 years almost. Yeah.
Almost 5 years. Yeah, we're very fortunate to have him as our chief. So
All right. Any questions of Riley?
Oh, just to thank you again for your efforts on the Parley's fire this weekend and the days before today. It seems far that it'd have to go Mill Creek, all those canyons to us, but it's great to see the level of effort and care and accomplishments you guys made with a little help from the rain.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, and thank you to you as well as police for Butlerville Days. I mean, with as many people as we had in that park without a major incident of any kind for many years in a row, that's amazing both for fire and police. Yeah.
Yeah, we work closely to make sure that's coordinated well and that we.
That's
we
a lot
do
of
the
people.
best
Yeah.
That we can.
I was driving home when the Parley's fire was getting going. I saw the smoke coming and it did not take long.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
I drove over Guardsman right in the middle of that. So
Yeah.
I had to go to Midway to a wedding and I said, well, I get there. So I did it.
I had the opportunity to try to get up I-80 when that was going on.
Yeah. I came down that
Quite
way.
the
and still
adventure.
saw you.
Yeah.
All right. But again, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the dedication of you and all your firefighters and UFA and our relationship. So
Thank
you. All right. We have a few action items and then we need to reconvene. So let's move ahead. I think almost all these action items we've kind of reviewed. So unless you have a question, we'll move relatively quickly. Item 7.1 is consideration of an ordinance 365, amending our code section 19.29.030 concerning home occupations in our R16 zones. Any questions or comments regarding that ordinance? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt.
Move that we approve ordinance 365.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bruce. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilmember Peterson. Any final comments, questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Michael,
Yes.
Councilmember Bruce, Councilmember Bracken,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
They misspelled your name on here. I won't tell them. It says S-O-N. And I'll vote yes.
At least I'm not Councilperson McHale. I had to throw that out there. Sorry,
I
Christine.
looked at it when that happened. All right, item 7.2, consideration of ordinance 366, approving a city initiated request to amend the land use plan for 6.27 acres on Wasatch Boulevard. This is to amend the city's general plan, and we've talked about that. That's where the Ferguson Canyon parking and park is. Any questions or comments regarding ordinance 366? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval.
Move that we approve 6.
It's been moved by Councilor Bracken. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Bruce. Any last comments, questions? Here, I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken,
Yes.
Councilmember Bruce,
Yes.
Councilmember Michael,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. And they spelled your name right on that one. Item 7.3 is ordinance 367 approving the city initiated request to rezone the same 6.27 acres from RM residential multifamily to R18 residential family public facility.
I don't know, Mayor, for all the grief that this caused you and my wife on the community council 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You want to make the motion to approve this rezone? If not, I will, but
All right, if you'd make that motion, I'd approve it. So we're going to consider that as a motion by Councilmember Bracken. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilmember Peterson. Any further comments, questions?
not going to be an office building.
Yep, not going to be an office building, thank goodness. All right. Yvette will call for the vote. Councilor Bracken,
Yes.
Councilor Bruce,
Yes.
Councilor Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Michael,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Next item is 7.4, Resolution 2021-40, approving agreement concerning historic structures. This is a resolution to approve agreement where we we have a consultant who will prepare a historic register of nomination for one of our city's historic structures, and will perform an intensive level survey of another 18 of the city's historic structures. Anyway, it's written in the packet. So any questions or comments regarding that? It's a grant that we received the funds at.
The next step, they've done a lot of it so far. and
Yep.
keep doing-
All right, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve resolution 2021-40.
Been moved by Councilor Bruce. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Michael. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Councilor Peterson,
Yes.
Councilor Bracken,
Yes.
Councilor Bruce,
Yes.
Councilor Michael,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Item C 7.5, I don't know why I marked that off right. 7.5 resolution 2021-4 approving an interlocal agreement with Canyon School District for busing services. This is where they provide the busing services for the Big Cottonwood Canyon Marathon. They do that through us. We provide the insurance, then we're reimbursed as discussed in the work session. Any questions or comments?
I guess my only comments on the Brooksy group is I wish they may have gone a bit above and beyond when we asked them about masking and other social distancing, but otherwise it's a great event.
No, thank you for that comment, and it's more than appropriate. I entertain a motion for approval.
We approved resolution 2021-41.
It's been moved by Councilor Bracken. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Peterson. Any final comments? And I'll call for the vote. Councilor Peterson,
Yes.
Councilor Michael,
Yes.
Councilor Bruce,
Yep.
Councilor Bracken,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Item 7.6, it's consideration of resolution 2021-42. This is approving an expense reimbursement agreement with Brooksy where they reimburse us for our direct costs related to that marathon, which includes public safety, planning, permitting, everything else that we expend. They'll reimburse us. Any comments or questions regarding item 7.6, resolution 2021-42? Here none, I would entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve resolution 2021-42.
It's been moved by Councilor Peterson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Bruce. Any final comments, questions? Here none, I'd call for the vote. Councilor Michael,
Yes.
Councilor Peterson,
Yes.
Councilor Bracken,
Yes.
Councilor Bruce,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. The next item is resolution 2021-43, approving an interlocal sustainability action plan. It's been presented, and eventually this plan will be adopted by, I understand, Mill Creek and Holiday as well. And our compliments to our staff who have spent many months putting this together. Any final comments or questions regarding resolution 43? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve resolution 2021-43.
It's been moved by Councilor Michael. Do we have a second?
Second.
And second by Councilor Bruce. Any final comments, questions? Hearing none, I call for the vote. Councilmember Bracken.
Yes.
Councilor Peterson.
Yes.
Councilor Michael.
Yes.
Councilor Bruce.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. The last item is approval of our city council work session and business meeting minutes for August 3rd, 2021. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as stated.
I move that we approve, Mayor.
Been moved by Councilmember Peterson. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Peterson, seconded by Councilmember Bracken. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I'll just abstain, Mayor, as I wasn't present.
Okay, so let the record show that we had 4 ayes and 1 abstained by Councilor Bruce, who is not present. Now entertain a motion to adjourn and reconvene in our work session.
Oh, sorry, we adjourn our business meeting and reconvene the work session in 5 minutes.
Do we have a second?
Oh.
Been moved and second. All in favor, say aye.